So we have looked at absolute positional encoding, where the idea was that in a transformer model, since there is no notion of an order, unlike a recurrent neural network where you have the previous input, previous state feeding into the next state and so on, we needed some notion of position, and hence we had added these positional encodings. And the way to do that was to have these position numbers for the tokens, and for every position have an embedding which is of the same size as the word embedding, and then these two get added, right? So the position j to 512, suppose j equal to 0 to 511, if your max sequence length is 512, oh sorry, this is the positional embedding, sorry. So where the positional embedding gets added to the word embedding, right? So this is a 512 dimensional embedding, and the word embeddings are also 512 dimensional, and both get added to give you the new embedding which encodes both the word information and the position information. Now these values are fixed and they come from this sinusoidal function that we had seen, and we had learned the motivation behind choosing it, so that words which are closer to each other have the positions which are closer to each other have a smaller difference in their positional embeddings as opposed to positions which are farther away from each other, and the sign function allows us to model that, right? So we had seen this when we had discussed the basic transformer architecture, right? So this is what the vanilla positional embeddings, which are known as absolute position embeddings, because you have a position embedding for every position. It's not a relative position embedding, as we will see in this lecture. Right now, one approach is to encode the absolute positions. That's what we have been doing so far. Why not encode relative positions, right? That this word, when you're looking at token 2, with respect to itself, it is at position 0. The relative position is 0. The word before it is at -1. The word before it is at -2. The word after it is +1. Right. So why not encode this information as opposed to just having an absolute position embedding for all the positions? And so far we were adding the word embedding to the position embedding to the word embedding. Can we do something else? Can we multiply it? Can we have a position embedding and do suppose a Hadamard product between the two vectors, or we could add it to the attention score? And where does this intuition come from? This will become clear, right? So for now I'm just asking these questions. Why do these questions make sense will become clear over the course of the lecture, right? And so far the values of the position vector are fixed and they come from some sinusoidal function. Why not learn them, right? Why not say that I want to learn the positional embedding? So I'll have a randomly initialized vector for each position and I'll learn it along with other parameters. And there's still an active area of research alongside attention mechanisms, right? As we are looking in the last lecture, people are still looking at different attention mechanisms, and there is also a fair bit of research ongoing on positional embeddings. So let's look at some of the works which have come out after the absolute positional embedding, which was used in the vanilla transformer architecture, right? And we can group them into two categories. So one is absolute, the other is relative. Within absolute, again, you have fixed, like the one which we had, the sinusoidal function, or they can be learnable, where these word embeddings are made as parameters. They may be initialized from a certain function, but then you allow them to be trained over the course of training, just like any other parameters in the network. Similarly, you could have relative, which can again be fixed, or they can be learnable, right? And we have not really looked at relative word embeddings, so we'll relative position embeddings. So we'll do that today. We'll also motivate why they make sense. So this is what we had in the vanilla transformer. Then these are some models which have learnable matrix, parameters for positional embeddings. Then some other models which have relative position embeddings but fixed relative positional embeddings, and then some models which have learnable relative positional embeddings, right? And so if you remember that diagram that we had, where we had said that all these models differ in the training data, which was at the bottom, or the positional embeddings, or the attention mechanisms, or the learning algorithm, or whether they use pre-normalization, post-normalization. So this is, all these differences are what we are focusing on, and one of the differences is the type of positional embeddings that they use. I don't expect you to sort of memorize what is shown here. These are just some examples. When you read individual papers, now you should be able to understand, if Lama mentions that we use a relative positional embedding, then you should be able to understand what they are talking about, right? So that's the idea. So first, let's start with the motivation for using relative positional embeddings. So many early models used absolute position embeddings, right? And this is what happens. Every word is associated with a position, and that position is associated with a token, right? So if the word somewhere appears at position 0, then there would be a specific position embedding which gets added to it. If the word somewhere appears at position 25, then there will be the 25th positional embedding which will get added to it, right? So now, while people were using these absolute positional embeddings, it was hypothesized in some studies that the absolute position embedding, the absolute position embedding, the attention mechanism does learn to attend to tokens based on their relative position, right? And why is this important? Because the words may focus. We have already seen that many words focus on a local window, right? When we are looking at the motivation for having a local sparse attention mechanism, we had seen that words often look at a very narrow region around them, and this region could be in terms of relative positions -1, -2, +1, +2, right? So it's important to encode that relative position embedding. Now you are at position 4, and encoding that this word is position 5 is not as useful. I mean, it is useful, but perhaps it's better to just encode that this is a +1 from the current word, right? So that sort of makes it clear that this is a neighbor and perhaps and hence important, right? So let's see whether this really happens, right? So does AP actually attend to relative positions? So let's see whether this is actually true. So suppose we take a trained model, right, and we do a simple test. We pass it a sentence, and we want to see whether this sentence is grammatically correct or not, right? Simple. That's all we want to do. And so imagine that you have a trained GPT model, and then you have fine-tuned it with some amount of data or even maybe not even fine-tuned. You just sort of ask it whether this sentence is grammatically correct. If you could fine-tune, even better, right? And in this case, you're just looking at the perplexity score. So you're passing it a sentence, and what is the perplexity of this sentence according to the model? That's all that you're testing, right? The output of the model should be consistent, irrespective of whether if you give it the same sentence, right? And then you say that, hey, the positions of the words in this sentence are 0 to 20 versus the positions of the words in this sentence are 100 to 120, right? It's the same 20 word sentence, and it's grammatically correct or not correct, right? I mean, it's the same sentence, you're not changing it. Now, in the first case, when you had given the positions as 0 to 20 and the model predicted the output as, say, grammatically correct, now the same sentence you're feeding, but the only change you're making is that now you're saying the positions are actually 100 to 120, in which case different position embeddings would get added. The position embeddings for 100 to 120 will get added to the word vectors, but intuitively in both these cases you don't expect the output to change, right? So this is what we are saying. This is the first test where you had this sentence and you added the positional embeddings as 0 to 7, right? And now we just change the starting position and say that, okay, hey, actually these words are at positions 100 to 107. Now both these sentences, if you pass through, nothing has changed in the sentence, so they are both grammatically correct or incorrect, doesn't matter, but the same output should remain, right? But what people observe is that actually the position, if you change this, if you add this shift, right, when the shift is 0, you get a certain position, but as you keep adding, increasing the value of k, which is by how much you are shifting the position, right? You are pretending as if this is position 100 or pretending as if this is position 200, 400, 600, 800, the performance of the model keeps decreasing, right? That means it is actually sensitive to the absolute position embeddings, and it's not really learning the relative positions, right? And this motivated the need to explicitly encode relative positions, because the claim that hey, absolute position embeddings also look at relative positions was sort of proven wrong, at least by this empirical study, right, which shows that, hey, if you just manipulate the position, then the outputs change, which means it does not really have a notion of relative positions, right? And what we mean by relative is that in both these sentences, somewhere is the first token, right? Just because I've said it's the 100 token, something is the next token related to somewhere. Incredible is the token which is the distance to with respect to somewhere. That relative distance is not changing, right? So if that is the case, that the second word is incredible in this sentence, the fourth word is, then if the first sentence was grammatically correct, then given the second sentence has the same structure, it should also be grammatically correct if this relative information was actually being encoded in the positional embeddings, right? Because then it just means that, hey, the fourth word is when the first word was somewhere, and this seems to be grammatically correct, right? The other limitation when you're using fixed positional embedding is that the model cannot generalize beyond the context length, right? So what do I mean by that? Suppose during training you had set the maximum context length to 512, okay? And now that means you have learned positional embeddings for positions 0 to 511, right? Now at test time, if you want it to generate a longer sequence, you want to generate a sequence of length 1024, right? Then how does it generate it? Because it does not have position embeddings for 512 to 1023. Those position embeddings were never learned. So how will it, when it's decoding, right, and it's reached position 512, it has decoded the first 511 words. These are being passed at input, and now, sorry, first 512 words, these are being passed as input, and now you want to predict the 513th word. But then you need to add the positional embedding to this, right, and that you don't have, right? So how will you do this, right? Because the model is limited to absolute embeddings, and hence 513 is not known because it was never a part of your training, right? And this is also related to the problem of length generalization, where suppose you had seen all sequences of length 256, 300 and so on in your training, while actually your context length was still 512, yeah. So those positional embeddings are still there. At least in absolute position embeddings, you were not learning the embeddings, so you still know how to compute the positional embeddings for 512 tokens. Now during training, if you had seen all sequences which were 256, 300, 400 or less than 512, now you are still within the context length, but if you want to generate 512, the model will not be able to generalize because during training it has not seen such longer sequences. So both these were found to be limitations of the absolute positional embeddings, and this motivated the need for relative positional embeddings, right? So let's see this further. Yeah, so this is what I was saying. Suppose a GPT which uses absolute position embedding was pre-trained with a context length t equals to 512. Now you want to generate a story of 1024 tokens. We do not have the learned embeddings for 513 to 1024, so we cannot generate it, and this will require us to retrain the model, right, with a larger sequence length, and this is not straightforward. Training models is quite expensive, right? So it is important that the model, even though it has seen some max sequence length, it should be able to extrapolate to longer sequences, right? And hence again this idea of relative makes sense, because if you're just going to say, hey, next token plus 1 plus 2 and so on, then even if it has not seen the absolute position 513, it still knows that, okay, how do I move to plus 1 from where I am currently, right? And we'll make that more clear as we go ahead. Also, right, let's look at another example, that we are adding two integers and the context length of the LLM is 128, but all our training examples were of adding two 4-digit integers, right? It's all that it has seen. And now can it generalize to adding two 12-digit integers? If it is it can, but it depends on the type of positional embedding that you are going to use, and absolute positional embedding is not a good choice as shown in this paper, right? So both these problems, related problems, one is if you have fixed the max sequence length, then it cannot generate things bigger than that, or second is that you have a good max sequence length, but at training time if you have seen only shorter sequences, then it will not be able to generalize. So both of these were established, and hence the need for relative positional embeddings, right? So we'll now I'll end this video here, and then I'll come back and talk about relative positional embedding.